And does Marcy do that, or should I do that? It's been a while since we did.
I could do it. That's fine. I'll
Okay.
start with council staff and our chair, Kathy.
Okay, here.
Thank you. Melissa?
Here.
Monica?
I'm here.
Any other council members or committee members? I don't see. Okay, we'll keep tracking that. John?
I'm here.
Michael?
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Lonnie?
Morning.
Sarah? I don't want to forget. Now we have a new staff person. Sarah?
Present and accounted for.
Accounted. Me, Jason?
Here.
Okay, and then Ashley, our intern.
Present.
Present. Okay, we're good.
Good. So John sent out the meeting minutes from the last meeting, work plan meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review that? And do you have any changes or to the meeting minutes?
Oh, man.
Okay. So would someone like to make a motion? Do we have to have a motion to approve them? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do.
Okay. Somebody like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I will. So moved.
Okay. That was Monica. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Melissa? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. The minutes have been approved as is. All right. And first on the agenda, I believe, is John and Marcy.
Yeah, we wanted to very, very quickly just kind of do a wrap up of the fiscal year 23 work plan, not go into a whole lot of detail because we've talked about these, the activities, the objectives, the goals kind of ad nauseum, I think. But we did want to, of course, let you know that the PPR was submitted, that there so far is no comment back from ACL on that. We did have, and I think we've shared this in the past, but we did have a couple of projects that received no cost extensions. There were a couple of projects that ended on time, but the reports were not completed within the 30-day time frame that we typically ask for reports to be done. In fact, for a couple of them, we've just recently received the reports. The ICI VR study is one of those. The Center for the Future of Arizona Communities at the Center project, I think, and Mike can correct me, but I think we are actually waiting for just the last final few corrections on that report. And we got we got a draft of the refugee, or actually, I guess the final version of the refugee study report from the Sonoran Center. Excuse me. So there were some delays in getting the reports. For the most part, the projects were done on time. Everything seems to have gone as well as we could have hoped. We will provide probably some more detail at the next council meeting on the results of some of those projects. I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on it today, unless you have specific questions about them. But I guess the long and short of it is things have been wrapped up for the most part for fiscal year 23, and we hope to have some comment back. Well, actually, we hope there are no comments from ACL, but if there are any comments, we'll share those at the April board meeting if we get them by then. The PPR, in my opinion, I've gone through it now just twice, but the process this year worked better than it did in the past, and I think the product we submitted was at least as high quality as the one we did the year before, and the fiscal year 22 PPR really received no negative feedback. So I'm fingers crossed. I'm hopeful that that's going to be the case again for this year. Marcy, please add anything that I've left out.
No, you covered it all. Thank you.
Okay. So any questions regarding fiscal year 23? Great.
Okay. I'm calling on my phone, so I can't see the agenda. I'm sorry.
Oh, you know what? The next, and I'm sorry, I'll post the agenda or share the agenda. The next item would be fiscal year 24 and 25.
And are you going to talk about them separately, the 24? Will you go into 24 first and where we are on that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me move this up a little bit. Can everybody see that? Does it need to be larger?
A little bit larger. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the first item would be a little bit of an update on where we stand on projects for this fiscal year. I think in a nutshell, everything or most things seem to be on track for the year. We're having some internal debate about some deadlines, about whether certain work can be completed within this fiscal year, whether there are projects that are going to have to be moved into FY25. That kind of conversation that I think sort of goes on every year, just kind of reassessing on an ongoing basis where things stand. As far as the major projects, you all have seen the work plan for this year, and as Sarah was saying a few minutes ago, we're doing an awful lot. We have probably more going on than we are comfortable with. We've bitten off quite a lot, and we'll find out whether it's in our best interest to do that moving forward. I would say we, in all likelihood, will look at scaling back a little bit in future years, just to maintain everybody's sanity. But for the time being, we have what we have, and so we're progressing as well as I think we can on those projects. We have sent out one solicitation for this year, and that's for the conference and training sponsorships. The deadline for those applications was yesterday. I believe Marcy told us we received 10 applications for that project, and we had allocated $50,000 in this year's budget for that. And so we'll be doing an initial review. Marcy will do her review, and then we will get the review committee together, and ultimately that'll move through the process of receiving grants committee approval for the proposals that are selected and so forth. We are also anticipating, excuse me, issuing another solicitation next week, and that would be for the God, why am I blanking on it? Marcy, what is it we're sending out for next week?
It's internet safety training, development of resources, development of the curriculum to be used, and it will be a pilot. So initially it would be possibly a multiple year grant, but initially the first year we want to look at rolling it out as a pilot so that feedback is provided to the contractor from the community.
Right. And this is an offshoot of the safety work that's been going on for a couple of years. It's it's related to the abuse and neglect prevention projects that we've been supporting. It's intended to kind of add an additional aspect to that, which is helping individuals with IDD protect themselves when they're online, not get caught in scams or in phishing or in the wide variety of different dangers that may exist online, but also not get themselves in trouble because of online behaviors that are frowned upon and possibly illegal. So we'll see. We'll keep up to date on that. And again, we're hoping that solicitation will go out next week. Marcy, I'm going to turn it over to you to again fill in any gaps that I've left regarding this year.
Sure. I know there's a lot that we'll cover. When Lonnie talks about the budget, you'll see where all the budget money is forecasted for and or budgeted. So a couple of new ones. We just talked about conference sponsorships. Quite literally shocked that 10 came in. I have no idea how well they're written, what will be selected from an outside evaluation committee. Any of you guys are interested in being on the committee, let me know, because I do need to put a committee together for that. As we just talked about internet safety training, it has to go out next week in order for it to be evaluated and awarded in June from the council. There is a third solicitation that John and I are going to talk about next week. That is a new one, but from a carryover of the work that the National ARC did for its sexual abuse reporting, recognition, collaboration, what we always refer to as a collaborative from the ARC, the carryover that Erica did, because that one was not renewed for a third year. We held off on it, but we do need to think about what sort of scope of work that will entail. So again, John and I are going to be working on some key activities or thoughts to put together for solicitation on that. The other thing I would add, and Lonnie will again address this, there is in discussion right now the legal options manual to consider this year. We're back and forth with JC on a proposal. We're under discussion with NAU IHD for perhaps assistive technology proposal that's been budgeted, but it got pushed back to 24. So we need to think about what that project will consider. We've had some preliminary discussions on it this week. Kelly sent us some ideas, and we need to think about that before we present anything to the committee. And then obviously we have 5 contracts that are up for renewal. That will be the 3 contracts under the pregnancy parenting grant, 1 for support decision-making, and 1 for self-advocacy. All of those will roll into a second-year contract. And I'm going to be sending out some information out to those contractors next week. And that will be at their level funding of what they were approved for. And I will stop there. We do have other things in the pot to consider, but that's, again, we'll pop in when Lonnie discusses her budget. I do want to make one final point. If you've looked over the drafts of the work plans, the individual work plans, we did meet prior to our previous scheduled meeting in February. So staff has met. We've gave updates as far as what the status was. I have received all the narrative reports from any of the contracts. As John stated, we are awaiting some final research reports. Those should be coming in for the committees to address and consider anything as far as recommendations. I have to tell you that the narrative reports we have received, especially in regards to self-advocacy and support decision-making, have been outstanding. I cannot thank the ARC of Arizona and their collaboration working on them. They are doing a rock star job, and I don't give out kudos very often, but when I get reports that are literally a minimum of 20 something pages with attachments and detailed information, I'm pretty thrilled considering what we used to get in the past. So it was a really good idea to take a pause during the time when we were not getting the results and outputs and outcomes and information that we needed, and kind of reset, refocus. I think that speaks to everyone and council members saying, yes, it's okay to not continue something when something's not working. And we have to reset. So, and I meet quarterly with both project staff people on those contracts. Sarah just met the self-advocacy group, and she's going to be supporting them on their communication efforts. And I think it's really going to be a nice summary for the council to consider when you see their information come out after the first year. So I will stop with that.
Yeah, and I have to echo what Marcy has said. The work that's been done just in the first 6 or 7 months of that, of those 2 contracts actually, is pretty unbelievable, and really shows the quality of the contractors. And so we're very pleased, and we're seeing the results. It's I think paying off very, very nicely. I did also want to mention a couple of things that are sort of non-budgeted. They're not going to reflect on the information that Lonnie shares in a moment, but they're very important. One is they're on the work plan, or to some degree, or potentially not. One is, as everybody knows, we're in Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, so we have some activities related to DDAM. Mike is really the lead on that. Mike, would you share really quickly what's going on with outreach and webinars?
Sure. So we're going to have a webinar series. It's titled Creating a Life Full of Possibilities, and we're looking at starting that webinar series in May. I've contacted organizations to see who can present. We have a session planned for person-centered planning in middle and high school transition, supported decision-making, post-secondary education and transition, technology and employment, and project search, and a summer work program. Yesterday, Sarah met with the ARC. I know that Marcy gave Ryan Berry and that group kudos for what they're doing. But Sarah, did you share the write-up with them? And I'm just curious to know what their feedback was.
They had some excellent feedback. They were really generous with some of the suggestions they offered. I posed to them if the topics Mike just mentioned that we highlighted for the series would hit the mark, for families looking to start planning earlier for their child to, be successful adults, no matter what that looks like. And, I read the titles as is, and they said that those are all things that parents are interested in and, young adults are interested in. However, they said many parents don't even know what they are looking for, and they suggested rephrasing some of those things in a way that it would be easily understood. Like, we need to start thinking, okay, what questions are they asking? Like, if they were putting into a search engine, what would they be Googling? And, we want these resources to fill their need, but so that just really kind of got me thinking. I don't have an alternative list of titles yet, but it just drove home the fact we cannot assume, like, we want to reach new audiences and not speak to the same people all the time. We can't assume people know the lingo or the concepts, and we can't even assume that they'll access the information the same way. A webinar series sounds strong. There's also no reason why we can't take little clips from the webinar or quotes and make little, videos from them to reach new parents. We talked about how a lot of parents now use TikTok. We're not allowed to use TikTok, but we can use alternatives like YouTube Shorts. I think the staff is probably already tired of me talking about vertical video. No matter our personal feelings about it, it's the way young parents consume information. And it's interesting because it's very short, but people are sharing quite detailed information quickly through that format. So we could talk more about that, but I just wanted to share that with you, Mike, and the rest of their suggestions from yesterday.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, those are just subject matter areas that, I was recommending. And of course, we're going to fine tune the titles and make them more attractive and to help create awareness of what that webinar is going to focus on. But I do appreciate you sharing that with them, and that's really good feedback to get from them. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
And Kathy, the last thing that I would throw out there is, in a general sense, now that Sarah's on board, and it's hard to believe it's only been a month since she rejoined us, we are working on I would say, a fairly comprehensive strategy, fairly comprehensive approach to our communications moving forward This is not necessarily reflected in the work plan, although much of the communications plan will involve awareness and outreach related to our work plan activities, but some of it will be opportunistic, some of it will be dealing with things just as they arise. But I feel very confident about the direction the communications function is moving and will move. Between Sarah and Jason, I think we've got some strong expertise, the ability to use social media, to use traditional communications, to use every tool that's available to us to make sure we're raising awareness of the council, that we're raising awareness of the projects being funded by the council and the organizations undertaking those projects. So it's a very encouraging moment for us when it comes to getting the word out and sharing that awareness of what's going on. I think you and the council as a whole will be very pleased with the outcomes over the next year and well beyond. So I think that probably wraps it up for our progress to date on FFY 24.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think technology is changing so fast, and then we're getting different generations of parents that we have to be, as a council, skilled in how we communicate at the different levels for the different generations. And it's almost like things change so fast. It's hard to keep up, I think, with how you communicate.
Can I say one more thing about that? You're so right, Kathy. What's interesting is that we're seeing a lot of really new technology, but there is a craving for old school methods too. I think in-person events are going to be especially important. We may have to rethink how we do them a little bit, but it's going to be a blend of this old and new.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you. That's exciting. Okay. Next on the agenda. Let me see. Is it my turn? I'm trying to think. Hold on.
The next item is a report from Lonnie about status of funding for current projects and what we anticipate, and then a discussion of what we anticipate moving forward. So, Lonnie, take it away.
Yeah. I'm going to take over from you and hopefully be able to pull up what we need. Are you guys able to see the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council budget recommendation? No. Oh, great. So it's not showing.
You could probably pull it up.
I'd kind of like to have the control of it. I thought I was sharing. It could be because, so let's try this again. Now, are you guys able to see the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council budget recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to do a deeper dive. You guys see this every full council meeting, but because this is kind of a one-page overview of all of the work plans, it's a good summary of what's going on, at least as far as funded projects go. Unfortunately, this does not include the in-house non-funded projects, so you're just getting an idea of where the money's going. But a majority of our projects are funded. So just keep in mind that in-house projects are not reflected here, but these are the contracts that are kind of in place over the past few work plans. So I also want to highlight that the funding year is going to be different than the work plan year because our grants are open for 3 years. The first year is usually the obligation period. So when we identify the projects and try and put everything in place, the second year is the year when we actually do the work, and it has to be completed based on the period of performance. And that third year is just to take care of final invoicing. So we're not going to look at fiscal year 22 because that's primarily the work plan that was for 23 projects. Federal fiscal year 23 funds is primarily paying for what we're doing right now in the 24 work plan. And when I talk about federal fiscal year 24 funds, that's going to be what we're looking to do in federal fiscal year 25, if that makes sense. So the funding is going to be a year behind the projects that we're working on. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to go line by line, and I'm going to touch on both what we're doing. It says 23 and 24, but be thinking about work plan right now. So 23 is going to be 24 work plan. 24 is going to be the 25, what we're looking to do in federal fiscal year 25. So considering all of that, the first project was the Self-Advocate-led coalition. This is the contract that we have with the ARC that Marcy was given props to. So we're in kind of the first year with the ARC. They were awarded $60,000, and this is their current contract. It runs through the end of June. And we plan on continuing that in level funding. So that will carry over into 25. The next project is supported decision-making. That is also with the ARC. It also runs through the end of June. They were awarded at $80,000. Now, right now, we kind of have step-down funding for them. That could be adjusted. But right now we're anticipating for the next year, potentially 70, but it could be 70 to 80,000. We haven't nailed that down yet. It just kind of depends on what they're doing and how things pan out with the rest of the projects that we have going on. So just know that this number is negotiable. Trainings and conferences, Marcy brought this up already. We had 50,000 dedicated to this. We're hoping to have a July 1 start for these conference sponsorships, the 10 proposals that came in that need to be evaluated. But yeah, it's something that we've been doing for years. And internally, we have had discussions as to whether or not there's value in pursuing that going forward. So just know that, are we getting the return that we want, and is this giving us what we need? Has been an internal discussion that may need to have a larger council discussion as well. I don't know if John or Marcy want to add anything onto that at this point, or I just figured I'd mention it.
I'll jump in really quick. The reason why I think there's some apprehension about whether this is going to go forward past this coming year, the 10 proposals that would be evaluated, and to see what happens. Historically, we have never awarded the full amount. We have never awarded all the applications that come in. And so there's just a small number of grants that are considered, that can be considered by the council to fund. And it's this current year, there's just 4, I think. You know, I'm even blanking on even the ones that are ongoing right now. And I know that families really appreciate, you know, the opportunity to attend, you know, like a Autism Society conference, or, you know, the 12th annual whatever conference or something like that. And I think there's benefit to that, but I think we need to have a larger discussion about, we've been doing it since almost 2010, 2011. So we've been doing it for quite a while. Maybe the discussion is around, we keep it in this current 5-year plan to run through one more year, which will bring us through the end of 26. And then when you guys decide how you're going to develop your next 5-year plan with your goals and objectives and activities, you know, you can think about skipping it every other year, making it more specific. Certain topics will only be considered, or it just says no more. So I'm open to any discussion, and that's something we could put on a different agenda. to have further discussion about it, about some of that. It's just that when we get reports back, the event itself just captures the demographic and the satisfaction of it. And, that's it. So it's just a really quick, easy report in our PPR, and it's a one-time thing.
So I don't know about the other council members, but I would like to see a further discussion on it because I do think that sponsoring is valuable, but I also think that we need to change what the requirement is of what they give back to us, not just satisfaction, but if they want our sponsorship, then they have to provide us with more information, a survey or something, more than just satisfaction. I don't think that tells us anything usually, but I do think we should have further discussion on it to see if we can come up with something.
I agree with you, Kathy.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good there. The next project is SEEP. That's through ACDL, or what was formerly ACDL, now Disability Rights Arizona. We're in the third year with them. They were funded at $150,000, and this contract runs through the end of September. And there is no continuation with that project at this point. And again, the last one, this is already completed. There's nothing going on this year or moving forward. What's highlighted in yellow throughout the sheet are new projects. So the legal options manual we've had for a number of years, and it's time for an update. Again, that's going to be an ACDL or DRAS, Sonoran USAID collaboration. We've received a proposal from the Sonoran USAID, and we're kind of working through some revisions there. The original amount was $30,000. It's gone down a little bit to closer to 25. So this number is kind of in flux as we work through the final proposal that will be presented to the council. Once the proposal is ready, then we will send it through the appropriate council approval channels. I don't know if Marcy or John want to add anything regarding the legal options manual update.
Yeah, I would just echo what Lonnie said. It's been quite a while. 2016 was the last update. There's clearly been some change in the law. In particular, supported decision making is now in effect. There was mention of supported decision making in the other version, but it wasn't in reference to the legal standing of that option. So that needs to be incorporated. We also want to make more things available in plain language. We want to make more things available. Well, we had a Spanish language version last time. We'll continue to have that. Want to make things accessible online as well. So there are various actions that need to be taken as part of this project. The time has come, and between the Sonoran Center and Disability Rights Arizona, we should be able to get it done in fairly quick fashion and have a good product that we can that we can then send out to the people who continue to ask for it. This is without question one of the most requested resources we have. I think Mike would back me up on this. Mike and Jason are constantly getting requests for more copies of the manual, and it is something that seems to fly off of our table whenever we have exhibitor space at events. So, it just needs to be done. We can do it for a relatively small amount of money, and we're positioned, I think, to move forward with that. The one drawback, and I apologize, Lonnie, if you mentioned it, because we're doing it on a contract with the Sonoran Center, sometimes the University of Arizona can be a bit of a barrier in getting contracts pushed through. Things tend to get delayed when we work with UA. So, that could present us some delays, but apart from that, we think we're in pretty good shape to move forward.
So can I just ask one question? We have it both electronic and hard copy. And so do we have most of the requests coming that they get an electronic copy of it, or they want the hard copy of it?
Well, I can't speak definitively to this, but I can tell you that messages that come to me are typically for hard copies.
Got it.
Native American Disability Law Center is an organization that frequently asks for more copies. I think because although many people on tribal lands have cell phones, they may not necessarily have internet access at their home. And reading through the manual, reading through the forms, filling out the forms. By the way, that's another aspect. They're going to include fillable forms in this version, which is not what we currently have on our electronic version. Trying to do all that on a cell phone can be very, very difficult. So
Yeah.
For a lot of people, having the hard copy is just an easier way to go.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
I just want to mention that John is right. That is one of the most requested items. And when we exhibit at various events, for example, the Arizona Autism Expo or the American Indian Disability Seminar, that item is picked up by a lot of people. And we do get a lot of requests, Kathy, from the Division of Developmental Disabilities and schools. So we're really glad to provide that. But we were very concerned that the legal options man that we had was dated. And so I'm really glad that John took the lead to get that up.
Thank you.
So does anyone have any further questions regarding the self-determination goal area and the projects that we have there? Okay, next moving on to the Meaningful Careers goal. Right now, we have no funded projects or contracts in place for Meaningful Careers, but again, this doesn't include any in-house work that Mike is looking at and working on. Also, we have Carla Kravickas. Is that how you say it, Mike?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Yes, that's correct, Lonnie.
We have a temporary staffing contract with her, and so she's also working on projects, but I don't tend to put POs on this sheet. It's generally the larger contracts that go through solicitations or ISAs that are listed here, but it doesn't mean that nothing's going on in the Meaningful Career space. What we have highlighted here for 25 projects and moving forward is kind of the recommendations that hopefully came out of both the VR research project and the community at the center through ASU. So this is meant to be placeholders for next steps on these two projects. But again, those research papers and what we've received from them need to be reviewed and needs to be discussed within the committee as to what the next steps are and what it looks like moving forward based on the recommendations of those projects. Sounds like somebody may have raised their hand or has
I did, Lonnie. It's Melissa. Yep, Mike and I need to meet, and Mike's like, probably, I know this, we need to call a committee meeting sooner rather than later, because I would guess that you guys are probably coming up against some deadlines if we're going to put out any solicitations for our ongoing projects for both the communities at the center and the VR study. So, while those are out there and fresh, particularly, I mean, they're both really important, but particularly the VR one, I think that we need to get on that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because it definitely takes some time to flush everything out and getting everybody on board with what things look like moving forward. So at this point, we don't have anything budgeted. We'd kind of like to see what the scope of what the recommendations are first. And also, based on the timeline that it'll probably take to put something together, if anything gets put in place, it'll probably be later in 25 and most likely fall into 26 as well. So that may be a different column of funding in which we're looking at these, but the discussions and, you know, the groundwork, laying the foundation of what those projects looks like should be either here or here. But
Hey, Lonnie, so if any of those projects are funded for the VR study or communities at the center, when would the actual work begin that's going to be grant funded? Like actual time? I still get confused on, this is the year of the budget, but we're working 10 years ahead. I'm kidding, but something in there.
so right here, this column, we kind of need those projects to start October 1 of this year.
Okay.
And that's kind of why I have this blank, because I don't think that it's realistic to have an October 1 start at this point for these projects. And by October 1, we should technically start getting our award for 25 funding. So these projects could be a blend between the 2 years. It's better to have something in place, I think, sooner rather than later. But when you're looking at this column means that projects need to start October 1 of this year.
Okay, that helps.
So Melissa, that pretty much means you have to have an answer or plans by the end of this month in order to give them 6 months to get it through the system, it sounds like, you know.
Yeah. And again, we've got a lot of new solicitations down here that need to go out.
Yeah.
So we only have so much staff capacity to get new things out, where I don't think an October 1 start is realistic here. But Marcy, you could bring yours.
Yeah, so we met, Michael, you were not part of the conversation. I wasn't to exclude you, you just weren't in the office the day that Lonnie, John, and I were prepping for this meeting, going over the budget and the urgency. So we are going to shoot for 2 more solicitations to go out this spring for the council to consider in June. So we have conference sponsorship. That will be one. Internet safety is going to be another. And then there's a third one around post-ARC, the ARC collaborative work. And my goal is to try to get that out too by the end of this month. So realizing that there's 6 weeks minimum for a solicitation to be out per the grant rules. I can't do anything about that. Those things have to be wrapped up and evaluated in May. And then obviously you guys are meeting in June. The council's meeting in June for recommendation. So you're gonna have at least those plus the renewal grants to consider in June. It's gonna be a heavy grant meeting. I said to John and to Lonnie, with these 2 specifically under employment that are unknown, if a scope of work is going to be released for the council to award by October 1, so you're in your September meeting, we need to have those scope of works ready to go out in June. So Melissa, not to give you a heart attack, you do, and Michael and your committee need to think about at least 1 project that can be funded. You may have 5, you may have 3, but at least consider 1 scope of work that can be released in June for communities at the center, whatever their recommendations are, and the VR, and be thoughtful about it, because consider if that's going to be a renewal or if there's going to be other recommendations that can be considered for 25 and 26 and further on down the road, because we know these are long-term systems change efforts. So I would be thinking what initially would be something that can be granted out and for consideration for an October 1 date, at least 1 project, 1 activity for both of those. And then if you have others, we can budget for those and put them in the annual work plan for future years. So I just want to, you don't have to tackle everything all at once, you know that, but at least think about with your committee members, what would make sense to fill in this yellow blank here for us. Okay. Does that help?
Yes, it does. And I'm sure Mike is more aware than me, but yes, it does. I know, Mike, you and I need to meet as soon as we're able to.
I'll follow up with you, Melissa, and we'll get a meeting scheduled.
All right. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Marcy and Lonnie.
Yeah, and we're here to guide you on any of these things. So I mean, please keep us in the loop as need be if you have questions on the budget and stuff like that. But we're more than happy to help out and just clarify any of these.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have questions. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding meaningful careers or any further discussion on this goal topic area? Okay, moving on to inclusion. The healthcare decision videos, those are over. The data hub and everything that's going on with Alex and Impact Analytica, that's also been a relatively big topic of conversation internally with staff. They've requested a no-cost extension. Currently, this contract runs through the end of September, which works with our period of performance. They'd like, I think, it to run through the end of January of 2025. The difficulty with that is that we're stuck with our period of performance requirement, which means all work needs to be completed by the end of September. So that extension would draw out into another year. There has been some higher level discussion with ACL regarding the need to extend the performance period. We had the ability to do it with our 23 work plan items. We had to request a letter and get approval for extension of only the period of performance. That didn't count for anything. Our obligation period remained the same, but they did allow us some additional time to complete work. And with the continuing resolutions that we're operating under, the thought is that they're going to have to open up that ability to extend the period of performance period almost every year, it sounds like. So it sounds like every year we're going to need to write a letter to the Fed saying, hey, can you give us more time to do work? I'll get into that closer to the end, but hopefully that makes sense. And also, Alex is working to make this a sustainable project and to work with other organizations to be able to fund this moving forward. But yeah, he just needs additional time to do it. So we don't know if this is going to carry forward for another year or if a part of it will be extended into the next year. This one's kind of up in the air. Marcy, John, if you want to add anything further.
Yeah, I do want to jump in here. We've talked about this at length. Kathy, Melissa, Monica, you probably all recall that last year as the Work Plan Review Committee really came together, we talked about the importance of the Data Hub, the value that it provides to the community. Personally, I feel as though we need to be as creative as necessary. We need to do whatever is necessary to keep this moving forward. We had great success last year getting a data share agreement with DES. Alex has been able to incorporate that data into the Data Hub. He's just waiting for a final sign off from DES in order to make that information go live. So, you know, the process has been working really well, and I think the project itself is likely to be proving its value, if not already, then certainly in the near future. So, you know, the hiccup for this year is that the Census Bureau provides a certain amount of update information, but it always comes in either December or January, and that's why Alex is asking for an extension for this year. He's done a lot of work, and his students have done a lot of work, but the bulk of the federal update work is going to come toward the end of the calendar year, and he'd like to be able, because he hasn't used up all the funds for this year, he'd like to be able to reserve that money to use later. Now, Lonnie mentioned the continuing resolution. We're all aware that our federal budget, our federal government is operating under a continuing resolution, and it's driving us crazy because every time they pass another limited CR, it means that we don't know what our ultimate allotment for the year is going to be. The messages we get seem to indicate that it's going to be level funding from previous years, but we just don't know that for a fact. And, you know, when Congress is involved, you can be surprised in a million different ways. So, you know, given the fact that we have these ongoing CRs, I would say it's likely that ACL will allow us to extend the period of performance, but there's no guarantee. If the past couple of years have been any indication, you know, they'll be generous with us, but we just don't know. So, you know, it's kind of up in the air. As I said, it's driving us crazy because it, you know, all of the things that we're talking about today are in some sense speculation. They are based on an assumption that the funding that we have gotten is going to be the funding that we do get in the future. And you know, we don't have anything in writing to prove that. So I'm kind of battling, but I'll leave it at that. It's just, you know, for the data hub itself, it's something that I think we have to do whatever's necessary. And I hope that Alex is successful in finding ongoing funding either from the university or from somebody the university works with. If not, then as this committee and staff, we need to have a conversation about what the council is willing to do to keep the project alive. So,
Well,
very long.
I think that was really helpful, your explanation. I think at some point, we as a council need to think about data is just part of our standard operating funds, if possible. I don't know if that's allowed, but at some point, it's not a special project. It's just part of you know, the council. You need that data. And so, but that's my thoughts on it. And if you could get it as part of the standard operating, would you have to go for these, you know, extension requests to ACDL each time, you know?
I think part of it is finding who would update the data as well. Alex has been doing it, but I don't know that he wants to necessarily be the one responsible and continue doing it. Because the things that you get as well, John and Marcy, or
you know, I think I'm cutting Marcy off, and I apologize. That's a question that is sort of up in the air. He hasn't, at least in the conversation that I've had, he has not indicated one way or another if he wants this to be a long-term responsibility for himself. But I can tell you that he generally uses students and interns to do a lot of the work. So there's some value to his program, to his students in being involved in this. And from that aspect, I think he would be willing to take it on. But I don't have anything that you know concretely demonstrates that either. Marcy, has he said anything to you?
No, I was just going to say that in the years that we've worked with Alex Kurse, and he's a professor at ASU, so obviously he's got other responsibilities, but he was willing to take this on because he initially got involved with us from the previous 5-year plan development and some of the work on that. And so he was just a really good, interested person in data and knows how to find the data, crunch the data, analyze the data, create the Tableau to host the data. We don't have those skills in-house. And even though I agree that down the road it should be just operational side of the council, because we've heard that before, like you guys should be the ones that have the data. I'm not disagreeing with that. It just becomes an issue of, is this a continuation contract forever that you just know that it's going to be contracted out forever to whomever it is? Or is it eventually something that the council needs to consider a staff position to oversee data? And that could be a larger discussion in terms of just everything in the evaluation world of collecting data of our contracts and programs. But he has created the website and he manages the website. So, you know, even though we pay for it, he has the knowledge of how he is presenting that information and crunching the data.
Well, I think you're getting out at a bargain, to tell you the truth, because if you went out to a private company, I think we'd be paying a lot more.
A
So,
lot,
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
And he has been gracious to take on the initial work, which I think he was really excited about, and has been really patient with DES to get their approval process in place for even receiving the information on DDD. So hopefully that will come through pretty soon.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments, questions? Okay, go ahead.
Very good point to that, Kathy. The next one is a potential transportation project to be determined. Again, there's no funds associated with it at this point, and it may, yeah, a lot of internal discussions here. I don't think an October 1 start here is realistic, which is kind of why there's no funds in place. It's not that it's not something that we won't move forward with, but it may end up being in a future column. But yeah, a lot of discussion still going on regarding a potential transportation project. I don't know if John, Jason, anyone wants to add anything there. Marcy?
Yeah, I can try to add. Sorry.
Sorry.
I can try to add something. Right now we have a transportation brief that's being created, and the idea was to use some of the recommendations to fund the grant. So I'm pretty sure we're not going to be able to get it done by, proposal by in a month. So I would think it would have to go further down the line. Plus, there was some talk with the MAG that didn't really pan out the way we wanted it to. So yeah, it's gonna take more time to get an effective proposal out. So I don't think it's gonna be ready in time to release by in a month. So if that makes sense, or the idea is gonna come about.
Did someone raise their hand?
I did. I'm just curious on the nature of that project, Jason, the transportation one.
So the project itself is focused on the rural communities in Arizona, and I'm working with Ashley to do interviews and to actually write the brief. And so we're in the process of doing that. Ashley created the questions, and actually we met, or I gave him to Ryan Berry to take up there to Tuba City, and he interviewed some people for us. So we're working on that project, but it's not going to be, the brief's not going to be completed for another month or two. So,
Okay, thank you.
Anything else regarding transportation? Okay, the next project is the pregnancy and parenting education. We currently have 3 contracts, one with the ASU, one with U of A, one with the NAU. The sum total of those 3 contracts is $179,000 or around there. Those contracts run through the end of June, and we plan on renewing all of them. And so they will continue on into 25. And so all of these will start July 1. Any questions there? Anything you want to add, Marcy?
I do. Part of this funding may change a little bit, only because the first year they were doing research, and it was limited, the amount of time they were asked to conduct research around this topic area so that it could inform them and how they were going to create a program around it. So part of my discussion with each of the grantees that I'll have next week is taking out the research component, because we don't think that would be necessary in the second year. They should have the data. unless they can justify a reason why they need to continue researching this topic. It will be reduced appropriately so that it just supports the continuation of education and program development and project development. That amount may be a little bit different. It might be a little bit less.
Okay.
Can you remind me real quick, are they creating a series of trainings or on education on pregnancy and parenting? Where are they in that?
So they're each doing something different. They are, okay, so let me start with this. They are talking to each other. That is marvelous. All three university key staff people, hallelujah, they're talking to each other, they're sharing information because they're each going at it at a different way. ASU was looking more at social workers and educating those social workers that would have contact with potential, moms with IDD and stuff like that. So they were doing a little. Their amount was very low. So they were targeting more on that professional development level. NAU was really looking at more of the early childhood age group and really wanting to ensure that there were programs and services for those kiddos as well as moms. And so they had a different focus, kind of going at it at a different angle. And they have a community advisory board that kind of assists them in kind of reviewing the research and then how they were going to go forward with any information they develop. And we put them in contact with, Jason had provided some resources and some context because they needed a person with disability on their board or IDD on their board to help them provide feedback. So NAU's going at it through a different process. And then U of A was the one that had been working on it the longest because it was actually when Erica was here that she was the one that brought this up to the attention of perhaps it could be a further project funded. They're working with, John, you're gonna have to jump in here, Mercy Care, Raising Special Kids. My goodness, their research had already been conducted. They had surveys go out. They're still conducting data. I don't know all the players involved in U of A's. It's rather large. Yeah, you're shaking your head. And my understanding is that they're going to reach out to the medical community. They're going to reach out to different target groups, but one of them is going to be like the medical community to get information out on people with IDD and moms and parenting.
Yeah, they're working with March of Dimes, Raising Special Kids, Ability 360, Arizona Spinal Cord Injury Association, Mercy Care, and Banner Health.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Kathy, I think you brought this up, and I should have mentioned this in the previous when Sarah was speaking. Sarah and I have talked about on the website a different way to present narrative reports. So I was holding back on any other narrative reports to be posted that will have a little bit more specific information than I can provide to you offhand, so that we don't lose sight of having that information out for our council members and other grantees and the public in general who wants to know what our projects are really doing. They do provide good information in their reports. And if you wanted me to do a quick summary for you and then in a separate email, I'm more than happy to send that or attach it to the minutes.
Yeah, you could attach it to the minutes. I'd appreciate that for the other members to know. I just have one comment, and it's a national issue that maternal mortality, when I look at pregnancy, if any of these universities are really addressing pregnancy, it's a national issue of maternal mortality and infant mortality and people of color. So, and HRSA is really putting out grants out there to try to, get people of color, women of color, the care they need during pregnancy and for the infants. And so I don't know if any of them are focusing on that, but I think they should have a lens there of people of color. And whether they're talking to the pediatricians or the obstetricians about, working with individuals with IDD, there should be some focus on some of our individuals with IDD that are people of color. And are they making sure there's no bias in what they're doing, because there's, but that I'll get off my soapbox. I just think that they should somehow be focusing on that too, or aware of it. But anyway, I'm done, guys. Sorry.
No, it's a really good point.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything on these topics? And there's one additional project that isn't listed under the inclusion goal. It's more of a contingency project at this point. Originally in the work plan, we had something with NAU for a technology project with their ASTAP program. And we couldn't get anything kind of figured out with that. And I'll probably ask John and Marcy to add more detail, but there's still thoughts that there could be another contingency project with NAU. The topic area may be different than what was initially thought, but I don't know that discussions have been had, so it's kind of why it's not on this sheet and why it's still a contingency project. But I believe that John and Marcy have further future discussions with Kelly regarding something in a space that would fall under the inclusion goal.
Yeah, we talked with Kelly just a few days ago, and one of the things that sort of sparked some interest on her part was maybe using assistive technology for post-secondary education, and in particular, maybe using some of the SIPC cohort, the project that we funded for 3 or 4 years, using some of the students from that project and utilizing AT in their lives to see how it improves their educational outcomes. Sakenya McDonald, who is on the IHD staff and led that project, she's very excited about it. A lot of details still to work out on it, but we will continue those conversations. Again, we just met with Kelly a few days ago, and so we don't really have things lined out as we would need to enter into a contract. But I think we can probably move forward on something like that very quickly.
That is a very important, especially for those who use any kind of assistive technology.
I agree. I think that is so important. Just from watching my daughter in college, the technology really helps you stay up with your classes and learning and everything. So yeah, I think that's just really key. Yeah, good one.
Me too. I agree with Monica.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for the inclusion goal and the activities there. As far as safety goes, these first two, they're projects that are pretty much done, so not going to discuss them. Everything in yellow is pretty much new. The first will be a new solicitation around internet safety and training. It'll be a new RFGA. Right now we have it at $100,000, and we're hoping for multiple awards, or to be able to award multiple organizations to do the work. We're hoping for a July 1 start here. Marcy, if you want to add anything, feel free.
I'm going to finalize this RFGA next week. That's it. I mean, John gave me a lot of good feedback on, just the idea of the topics, the general purpose of it and stuff like that. And we crafted out some questions, and I just need to put it in the template, review it, and give it to John again. And it will go out, if not Wednesday, first thing Thursday. So it will be due at the end of April for a really quick turnaround review in May. So you can see why I am anxious to get this done. we're butting up against council meeting in June.
Thank you, Marcy. The next item is the community of practice facilitation. This kind of came out of what happened with Hacienda and the various groups that were pulled together to discuss what was going on there. We did not continue the contract with the ARC, which was providing that facilitation to those various groups. But we decided, let's do a new RFGA. Let's work out what this looks like moving forward. And right now we've got $50,000 for a new solicitation that I believe we're going to try and award for a July 1 start here as well. John or Marcy, if you guys want to add anything, feel free.
Well, that's pretty ambitious. That was me. We don't have anything crafted in specifics for a scope of work. I think we still need to have some discussion internally and with the collaborative that's still meeting. Some of the meetings are still ongoing, and it would be a good idea to get a handle on what they're doing to see if there's something that can be supported in the solicitation. So I am, even though I would like to see a solicitation go out relatively soon in the next 2 weeks, it probably will not happen, and it will go out, you know, later on in June for an October award. So even, you know, even the amount may change, but I think we need to be, need to put a lot of effort in this particular one. So it's still on the, it's still on there. It's still on the calendar. It probably will be an October start date.
Sorry, Marcy, putting added pressure on you.
You know, again, I mean, here, I think when we think about these projects that Lonnie has brought up, I mean, the urgency of it was there. I don't think it was like in my head thinking about everything that needed to be adjusted in our calendar, in my calendar time frame. I can't do anything about a 6-week process if that's what the statute says. So, you know, that plus knowing when the council meets is what I have to work within the time frame. And then we add on top of that, you know, our project performance period and the, you know, the uncertainty from the federal government. You have to juggle, you have to be flexible to juggle these things. And so, you know, this is not a bad thing, to be quite honest with you, because let me just talk very briefly about the ASTAP and the legal options. Those are ISA direct contracts with the universities. They're not going to be solicited out. They would just be making sure that we have our I's dotted, T's crossed when those proposals are in front of the council for recommendation to approve. And those ISA contracts, you know, I have to develop them and then get them signed off by the university, and they begin when they're signed off. So in one sense, you know, there's not that 5-month, 4-month, 6-month lag, you know, for those. So, you know, when I think about a new solicitation in June to go out, it is possibly the VR, the Centers for the Future that we discussed with Melissa, that she's going to figure out, you know, pretty quickly. And then the one that we just talked about, the ARC 2.0 collaborative work. So, you know, we've got time to develop those scope of works to be ready to go out in June. So I'm fine with that, as long as we could get proposals, really good proposals for those for the council to consider.
Thank you, Marcy. Again, part of why we try for a July start is that we often find that our grantees need additional time or request extensions. And with our now condensed period of performance, if we start everything in October 1, that doesn't allow us to extend any time to them unless we get extended time, and there's no guarantee that we will have an extended time frame that we could give them. So we're trying to kind of offer ourselves a buffer as well. And 2, a lot of grantees don't spend their full award amount, and not knowing what amount they're going to spend doesn't allow me to backfill and re-obligate funds that go unspent within that time frame either. So it really limits what we can do as far as moving money when projects don't spend their full award. So we try our best. We've been able to make it work, but it's becoming more and more challenging. Any other questions regarding this? Okay, moving on to the next two RFGAs. They're both for training. We're hoping for an October 1 start for both of these. I don't know if John or Marcy want to add anything there. No, we're running a little short on time.
I would give that to John. He's more familiar with what Noble Predictive Insight may have some. We're waiting on that report in order to maybe make informed decisions around those. I'm not quite sure.
Okay, we'll just move forward. We're planning on 2 new RFGAs regarding training around trauma-informed care and crisis response. The final thing is the behavioral health survey that Noble Predictive Insights is currently working on. It's a PO for $60,000. So yeah, that's current. That's it for safety. If you guys don't have any other questions. Moving on to system access, refugee projects. That final report was received. The contract ended in December. The Native Circle, we're going into, can't remember what year, but either way, it's level funding. The current project runs through the end of September. So this will be fiscal year 24. And again, it'll be awarded at level funding come October 1. And so that project will continue on. That was agreed from the beginning to be a 5-year project. Any questions there?
I just have one. Do they provide an annual report?
The for the Native Circle, the Sonoran, you said?
Right.
Yes, they do.
Okay. All right. That would be interesting to see. Yeah. I don't have any other questions.
And I don't know if you want to expand on that at all, Marcy.
All I could tell you is that we were really worried that they were not going to be able to find and hire a program director, for lack of a better title, because Wendy was really taking care of a lot of the initiatives, meeting out with the tribes. I think she had met with half of the tribes before she left. And then the previous person that was hired to take on the project did not pan out. And when JC took over, she also knew the urgency and our concern about it. And they were successful in hiring, I believe she's Navajo, on their newsletter. I don't know her last name. Her first name is Agnes. I mean, John has met her, and if John could expand, would know her name.
Yeah, her name is Agnes Atakai, and she is Navajo. She's worked for the University of Arizona for quite a long time in different capacities. I've worked with her on various initiatives over my time with the ARC, and she's really impressive. She gave an update. Sonoran Center did a panel presentation on their parenting project last week or the week before, and Agnes gave an overview of what the Native Center and the Native Circle are doing, and it's just amazing in just a couple of months on the job what she's been able to accomplish. So very good choice on their part. I think they're very fortunate to find her, and somebody that we're going to have an opportunity to work very closely with, I think, moving forward.
Part of this program too, and I don't think I'm very clear on what the Fed's expectation is the targeted disparity mandate, which this project is overseeing. So the targeted disparity is specific to focus on Navajo youth during transition in their IEP, assisting them in their transition into additional school, job seeking, just becoming an adult, and some of their ideas, you know, with services and supports on Navajo Nation. So, you know, they started to do some of that. They have several staff people kind of assigned to this grant, but it's one of several initiatives, from my understanding and speaking to JC, that the Sonoran Youth Set is undertaking to really collaboratively work with the Native American community in Arizona.
Good. Maybe we can learn from them and apply it to, you know, other populations. Some of their methods for how they're, you know, transitioning the youth might be good for others to learn.
Yeah, it may serve as a best practice.
Teach VR. Yeah. Yeah.
So the final thing that I kind of want to point out here is that we're showing right now about a $42,000 surplus. Please know that this is always a moving target. And again, we're working on an estimate because we don't know that this is going to be our true award amount, seeing how we're still under continuing resolution. This is level funding with the prior year. To date, we've received $511,000 under the various continuing resolutions. There was one just recently, it's 2 weeks. I think it runs through March 20th, and they're anticipating another continuing resolution through, I believe, either the 1st of June or July. So at some point we will know what our award amount is, but right now we don't. And this does offer us a buffer should there be, you know, we don't get level funding, or if there's a sequestration, there is a bit of a buffer there. And again, so much of this is still kind of to be determined. Again, there's the contingency project that isn't factored in here. And with these projects, even if they don't start on October 1, if they start throughout the year, it could then, you know, kind of fall into 2 different funding years. But so there's options and ways to take care of this. And we've tried to be considered with our approach, but yeah, so that's kind of where we stand. Hopefully that helps.
It does.
Yeah, it's. I just wanted to add, it's a relatively minor thing, I suppose, but related to the continuing resolution. Supposedly, there is an April 1st deadline for Congress to come up with a budget that the president can sign, or there'd be an automatic 1% cut to all federal programs. So, you know, we'd like to believe that that's enough to motivate House members in particular to make some progress. We don't know that for a fact. We're just guessing. But if that isn't achieved, then we may see an automatic 1% decrease to our budget, and then whatever further discussions take place may result in other cuts. Or Congress may say we're going to disregard that rule and give ourselves, you know, a little slack. We just never know.
Thank you.
Oh, I have. I'll stop sharing unless you guys need to see this still.
I just want to add one more thing that will kind of show up on these budgets down the road when Lonnie, you know, creates them and presents them to the full council. One of the things that we really learned unexpectedly this time around when we had the 3 research solicitations go out was the length of time that it took to get the final reports. And sometimes we're still waiting on them because obviously they're required to submit the drafts to staff for review, and they're not under the contract. The contract period ended for all of those 3 events. So UMass, for those 3 contractors, UMass, ASU, and U of A. So they were awarded 12 months to do a research and get a draft to us and finalize the edits based on our feedback. You know, what we've seen is that we're 3 months post these, you know, and we're still waiting on 2 of them. And, you know, this isn't a snipe at any of them at all, because they have done incredible work on each of these reports and the data. And, you know, we feel that what's going to come out of this is going to be really helpful for the council to consider. But what I propose to John, and I think we kind of need to still kind of figure this part out, is perhaps for any future research solicitation that goes out, it becomes a 15-month contract, so that it allows for the 3 months additional time for those drafts to be back and forth and reviewed, edited, finalized, and submitted under a contract period where they can be paid for. I'm sure they have other funding that's taking care of their salaries, but you know, it would at least give a buffer around us feeling comfortable with, you know, that's not being rushed and they're taking our input into consideration and the formatting and everything that we need. So it's just something that down the road, if there's any future solicitation regarding research, we give it at least a 15-month contract period.
Yeah, I agree. I think lessons learned. Yeah, I think it's a great suggestion. Okay. So
Okay.
we are done with that section.
Yeah. The next item on the agenda, Kathy, is any input from committee members on our work plan activities. If there is anything further you'd like to discuss related to what we've just presented, or
Yeah. Monica, do you have any thoughts?
No, I don't think so. But I'm really interested in how that AT, that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
How that keeps going. But that's the only,
Yeah. I think who we have on the work plan committee, we're not shy and we do speak up as you guys are speaking. So, and that's evident in that we've overgone our time already. But Melissa, any thoughts, any comments on the work plan so far?
No, my head is kind of in the space of what are we going to do with VR and ICI? And I saw that Mike, the final report came through on March 6th, which is good for the Communities at the Center project. So, I mean, I'm just thinking about what are the future projects going to look like? And particularly with VR, I think in some ways that one's almost bigger, because I know one of the recommendations for the VR stuff was that, they didn't just point a finger at VR. They talked about how what ADE's piece is, what DVD's piece is, and VR, they've all got to play well together. Like, but that is one of the biggest issues for everything, right?
Exactly. Yep. So
and
I was thinking the same thing as you were. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know one of those, I think, was a suggestion to maybe host a roundtable, but I mean, Mike and I really have to dive into that in our committee too. And obviously, if you have any suggestions or staff or anybody else, but we really got to give that a thought. And we did email me, ask to meet with me on the Communities at the Center stuff. So I'm not sure what her thoughts are on that as well. So I think we've got good projects that'll come out, but I am not sure what they're going to look like right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Mike. Okay.
I think what you all originally said about you have a lot on your plate, and I mean, it's amazing to see and hear everything that you're doing. And so I want to thank you. I don't have any more comments about the work plan. I think it's great. And I agree. You are juggling like 5 balls in the air with the dates and, having to deal with different requirements. So I just thank you for all the work you guys are doing. It's great.
Well, thank you, Kathy.
Me too. I appreciate the staff so much. I think if we ever get a total turnover, I'm like, I'm out of here. Bye, guys. See ya.
Yeah.
I've done my time.
And this continuing resolution will just drive you batty, won't it? Just like, oh, please, just let us do our work, But yeah.
It really puts constraints on the time frame to do the work, Because
Yeah.
again, we're 6 months in, it takes 6 months to put a contract in, and the second year needs to be dedicated to the work being done, assuming that they don't need extra time to complete the work. It's just, how are you supposed to operate with those constraints?
Yeah, well, and I hadn't heard the 1% thing. That's like, oh, that's a nice threat, so.
And
Yeah.
it may not be distributed equally, they've mentioned, so it's up to ACL or the larger organization as to how they make that 1% cut.
And then that creates even more confusion, Sometimes I just like, oh yeah, everybody's getting a cut. That would be easier. Then you know what you're going to do. But then you have to wait for somebody to tell you, oh, you're not getting cut or you are getting cut. So I really appreciate the amount of work you've done and the pressure you're under. I do understand it because, so.
You've been there.
But I don't have any other recommendations. I think the work plan looks good and look forward to seeing the reports. Yeah. And I think all the suggestions you guys have made and recommendations are really good. So.
Agreed.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you guys.
Yes. Yes.
We couldn't function without all of you. So
No,
thank you.
that's why I
And
like
guess-
this council.
And guess what? We're meeting this afternoon to talk about fiscal year 25 annual work plan. So we're delving right into it.
Happy Friday. Happy Friday, all of you.
Yeah.
It's best time to meet in the afternoon for 3 hours.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then go collapse on Friday night.
Exactly.
Don't eat a carb heavy lunch today. Skip the pasta, okay? Just sleep.
Eat some pasta. There you go. I love that.
All right. So is there any other comments or is anything else you need from the work plan committee, John?
I don't think so at this point. We do need to, the next item on the agenda is a call to the public, but there's nobody from the public on this call. We do need to schedule our next meeting.
Okay. And is that, I'm trying to think, we need to approve anything before it goes before the council, right? In June? Is that how we want to do? Or do you want us to meet? Let's see, this is March, April, May? Do we need to, do you need our approval or suggestions in May on anything?
I don't think, we're not at a point where we actually can make any changes to the work plan right now.
Okay.
Or where we would envision making any changes. So I think we should probably meet again to review progress and recommendations. If we meet again in May, we will have had a chance to move forward with the grant and training sponsorships, with other solicitations that may be issued by then. We will have an update on whether or not the IHD project is moving forward. So, it'd be a chance just to kind of get everybody up to speed.
Okay. Do you want to do it at the end of May or closer to the end of May, or do you want to do it the 1st of June or?
Yeah, I think late May would be better. First of June is kind of busy.
Okay.
IHD conferences around that time and a few other things.
Okay. So just not the weekend of Memorial Day,
No.
Memorial Weekend.
So maybe the 17th or the 31st.
What's good for Monica and Melissa and you guys?
John, are
I
you
think
looking at-
all of them are good. As long as it's not the first Tuesday of the month.
Yeah, I think we'll stay with Friday if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, you said the 17th, but were you looking at May or are you looking at June? Which month are we looking at?
I'm looking at May.
Okay,
And I just got a note that Marcy is out on the 31st. So maybe May 17th. Does that?
Sounds good. Yeah,
I can make that day work. Yes.
Yeah.
thank you.
You bet.
Okay.
Okay.
Does anybody on staff have a anybody on staff have a conflict with May 17th?
No.
Okay.
No.
Good.
Okay. So we will schedule then for Friday, May 17th
In the morning.
in the morning.
9 to 10:30.
You're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying a little bit late. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we
No
appreciate
worries.
you.
helping us to get through everything.
Have a good weekend, guys. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Don't pull your hair out this afternoon, okay? Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
You too.